Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. Well, have I got a great, episode today? I'm here with Muriel Van de Velde, and Muriel is all the way from Switzerland, 40 minutes approximately from Zurich. We're on the same time zone today. So, Muriel, it's Tuesday. I think it's around 10:08 a.m. because it's 6 p.m. here in Melbourne, Australia. But firstly, welcome aboard. So lucky to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Very pleased to be here.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, when I saw you were interested, I was like, oh my goodness, I am so grateful and so lucky. And let's get into it. I'll just quickly, I guess, recap on, not recap, but just know who you are. But I'm going to hand it over to you because we have a lot to unpack. We have a lot to chat about. We have a lot in common by the sounds of things. And yeah, this topic that we're going to talk about is, oh gosh, I so deeply resonate with it, and I feel like we need to spread this word more and more around what you're doing in the world and the positive and impactful change you're making. But you're the founder of Live Your Best Version. What a great business name for a company. And essentially, from what I understand, it's a health transformation company where you help and enable high performing leaders, founders, and professionals to optimize their energy, mental clarity and biological resilience, but you've got this background in functional nutrition. And so for me, it feels like it's this whole being that you're looking at when it comes to you live your best version. And so do you want to just take us through how you came to, because you've been in corporate world previously. So yeah, do you want to give us a bit of your backstory and then how you've come now to be working in and running your company that you're running?
Yeah, sure. I indeed have a background in the corporate world. So I spent 18 years in finance and strategic roles and for big companies in big roles. And I probably didn't feel myself so much or didn't sense myself so much. And so I also got to experience a burnout that came out of the blue in the middle of very important projects. And that was to me new, never thought about that, always thought like I could refill myself at the time with Red Bull whenever I would. Sorry for the branding.
That's
But
okay.
yeah, so and then in my last years before my second career in health, I actually was looking for my purpose in life. So I was really wondering, like, hey, I want to have more impact, and yes, I could have impact on the financials of a company, and but I felt like there was something more, and I kept on, even through professional coaching, I kept on saying I want to have more impact in my next job, but I couldn't define what it was. And then actually after my pregnancy, I had a longer break, and then I did a training in nutrition. It was already on the side. It was like a hobby. I was very interested in healthy nutrition since my own burnout. And then basically I went there and I came back home and I was like, I found it. I found my purpose, my new purpose. I can have an impact on more people by helping people. It's exactly what you were doing now, like spreading the word, but helping people to uncover their potential and understand how they can manage their health, prevent disease, but also just having a maximal health levels. And at the time, I always felt like there's so many people walking around me where I think like they don't have their maximum level of energy. This is not normal. And so I also, that's how I came to live your best version. You can live your best version and at any age to actually reach your goals, whether it's professional goals in your business as a CEO, as a leader, whether it's personal goals or things like I want to do a triathlon or whatever it is, or I want to found a family. But without health, you have less chance of hitting your goals.
Yeah, wow. What a story. Can we wind back to when you were drinking your Red Bull by the sounds of things nonstop? Or I was doing similar in terms, but I was having probably six or so coffees a day, averaging, 3 to 4 hours sleep a night when I was at my kind of craziest, running, I don't know, 180%, I would say. What was the moment when you said you had a big project and you said you hit this burnout and it came unexpectedly? Can you explain that a little bit for us? And then also what it did to you from a a mind and body perspective, and how that kind of almost, because it sounds like that was the crux of you going, I've got something more to do in this world. But what was
Yeah.
that, the defining moment? What was that burnout experience for you like?
Yeah. So I actually had a Christmas break. So I had a few days off between, during a project, but I had a few days off. And from one day to the other, I could not walk to my mailbox anymore. So it was that bad. So my entire body was sending a big alarm, a big bomb. It's over, Muriel. Now you didn't hear me for many months and years, maybe. So now it's over. Now I'm forcing you to fall
Yes.
down. So the experience for me was horrible because I was taken out of work for many, many months. I could not work. I actually missed our second honeymoon trip with my husband to Norway because I just couldn't go. So he took off with friends, and I couldn't join. And so it was really horrible in the sense of there was no cure. Yeah, I was used to, I mean, you get sick, maybe you get a pill and that's it. For me, it was like, oh, you have a chronic fatigue syndrome. And so any traditional doctor would be like, okay, yeah, you have to learn to live with that. Go to, at the time, this is like 17 years ago, go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and learn behavioral things. And
Strategies.
so for me, like not having it was young, not having like a way to solve this problem. I always had ways to solve problems, but there was like, there is no way out, was really difficult. And so I was very lucky to get into alternative or complementary medicine, which today we probably call functional medicine, but I got into the early stages and through friends, I went to Austria through a clinic. I'm like a private, holistic clinic that was focused on gut health. And so it was really, I'm a daughter of two pediatricians. So I understand, I've been brought and raised into the
Mm.
traditional medicine world, I would say. And so for me, there it was like very eye-opening in terms of back to basics, yeah. So we heal the gut, we give some time to your gut to restore. We slow down digestion, or we boost digestion, but we give it less work, and basically just back to basics in terms of nutrition, yeah, like nature, what can heal your body, and supporting your self-healing capacity in at any stage in life. And it's, this is what saved me. And I had another project scheduled in New York, and so I was really nervous about it. I knew I would have to go there 3 weeks, and I would have a team, and I would have to manage that. And I felt like, wow, if this doesn't work, how am I going to manage that project? And so, but it all worked. I lived for 3 months. I lived like a monk, and that's something people don't understand, often don't understand. When you have been damaging your body for so many years, you cannot expect to recover in just, oh, well, I'm going to do a detox for 10 days and then I should be in perfect shape. It takes time, yeah. And so for me, those were my first steps in understanding gut health, how you regrow your microbiome, how your microbiome is a foundation and feeds anything else in your body. And so, yeah, it took me, 3, 4 months to really get back to a stage where I was getting up in the morning and wanted to do sports, wanted to go for a swim or run. That was some things I had lost. And then it took, probably a year, 18 months to really get back into not get back, to get to a level of energy that I hadn't experienced for many years, but I had been masking it with Red Bull. Yeah, like.
Oh yeah, it's such a fascinating story, and it's such a story I relate to in terms of, that chronic stress and the build up, and then, like it sounds like yours was physical as well, and mine was the same in terms of it was, I just couldn't get out of bed one day, and I was just like, and I just finished on a roll. And I was like, what is this? And, it was just so confronting in terms of, and I think we don't talk about this enough. And I'm sure this is, like something that you would talk to a lot of people about. But I don't think we talk about the fact that when you're a high performer or you're in a very senior role, and then all of a sudden you go from, almost you're at the top of your game. You're running on adrenaline. You're literally running on empty. And then all of a sudden, yeah, the universe, whatever you want to call it, says to you, you're not listening. So I'm just going to knock you down. And I'm going to keep knocking you down until you actually understand what it is you're doing to your body and what you're doing to your mind and everything. And I felt like that was probably one of the hardest lessons I've ever had to learn. And, I'm continuing to learn it in terms of like that it's not normal to operate at that level and like the effects and the impact it can do to you. Yeah, it's very yeah, it's interesting, right? And I see it all the time. You see it in a lot of different people in terms of, that are operating at that pace. And, like the Band-Aid effect of kind of, well, if we just stick a Band-Aid on it, we'll be all right. But what you're talking about here is completely holistic. It's almost like regenerating ourselves and being able to thrive sustainably to be able to continue to do what you do, but doing it in a way that is way more
Sustainable, yes. I mean,
sustainable.
totally.
Yeah.
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 And so that is the hard part, I think, when I reflect back on my experience, I just didn't sense myself. And part of it has to do with genetics and how you tick, yeah. Part of it is like it's mostly people who want it all. That's how I define the people. It's like the corporate athletes, yeah. They run, they want everything. They want the best job, they want a super family, they want a good social life, they want to participate to triathlons or it's like crazy, but then you're not feeding yourself or nourishing yourself well enough. Nourishing in terms of food, but also nourishing in terms of sleep, in terms of maybe aerobic exercise instead of full on. And that used to be, my lifestyle with my husband as well. Like we would give everything the entire week, and then in the weekend we would do extreme sports like
Same.
freeride skiing or windsurfing and or mountain biking up the mountains and then starting again on Monday, and so it's like sensing and you feel as a corporate athlete, you think like, okay, I have so much to do, I just need to go full on. But after a while, you're not as productive and not as effective anymore, in fact, which you may not realize. And yes, you're throwing band-aids to any symptom you may get or overlooking them or saying, it's okay, it's normal, I'm tired, I'm working so much, I'm doing so much, but this is not normal. And so that's really what I want to encourage people to be thoughtful of. Once you hit the fence, it's more difficult to bring you back into a health space and it takes you more time than if you can work in a preventative mode and learn by doing as well, like how do you react to nutrition? And today we have so many wonderful tools to personalize your experience. And for me, it's like, yes, it's disease prevention, but not only. It's also even more so in our age category. It's about how can I maximize my energy so that I can do the things I like, and how can I have a brain that is stronger so that I can understand what I like, yeah, and not just do what I think people expect from me, but like really, where is my heart? Do I still feel it? And I had a very recent experience with a client who has Parkinson, and that was to me also very interesting as to how you can really influence your brain. So he was telling me, so we're going through a gut healing protocol and all that, and so he was telling me, Muriel, I actually, since 5 years, I haven't felt a sensation that I think is called ambition. I didn't know anymore how this was feeling, how this was resonating. And yes, I think this is ambition. This is a new feeling. I lost it. Yeah. And that is, you have to think about all neurochemicals in your brain. And in the end, yeah, that's what you're doing. Yeah. So, healthy mens sana in corpore sano, we say. But so it's really like if you heal your body, this has a huge impact on your brain. And as a high performer, the brain is really
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
So which takes me to a question for you, and I've always been intrigued about this because they say the gut is the second, is our second brain. How is energy and the gut? How do the two work together? So if you think about like a corporate athlete, and I don't like the term corporate athlete because it does like almost kind of go, if you're a corporate athlete, you're just going 100 miles an hour. There's so much language in terms of like an athlete is a high performer, but they also have off seasons, etc. as well. Coming back to my question though around energy and gut health and all of that, can you explain to me a little bit, like when you're like, for example, myself, when I was, kind of in high stress mode and it was, years of it, and then finally my body just kind of went no and stopped. What was happening between, and I know this is kind of, but what is happening between your gut and your energy levels? Because for quite some time, I was able to operate on energy that I thought was just normal energy, but it actually was probably fumes. But what is happening with, yeah, what's the connection with gut and energy as like when you think about it as a second brain? Am I making sense with what I'm asking?
I know you are. I mean, there are a lot of factors, but basically, so your gut, you have to consider this as really the roots of a tree. Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's where nutrients get absorbed. I mean, that's where your microbiome and your bacteria actually, convert like nutrients also to something that your body can do something with or can absorb and can actually, feed. Like for example, the mitochondria, the energy production in your body. So already you can have the best nutrition, but if you don't have a proper microbiome, meaning like a proper balance between good and bad bacteria, to say it very simplistically, then already you cannot not absorb the nutrients that you are taking in. Yeah, so that's the first thing. We also say like first it starts with self-intoxication. So you may be having food and stress and toxins and that get into your gut, and that's how you get to an imbalance in your microbiome. The second step is then when you get to that imbalance, basically you start to have all types of inflammatory reactions, and it's basically your immune system. 80% of your immune system is in your gut, we say. And so basically, I mean, I can't get into the details in such a short time frame, but basically your immune system starts to react to anything that is there. And immune system reaction means there is energy consumed. Yeah. And then inflammation, you should really imagine a fire in your gut. And so basically slowly but surely you're damaging the gut lining. So you have the microbiome and you have the gut lining. So slowly you're damaging that. And so gradually you are getting to something that people maybe be familiar with, leaky guts, which may basically means that your tight junctions of your gut lining are getting looser, and basically you're getting all types of particles in your bloodstream that should not be there. And your immune system, rightly so, is then saying, Mayday, Mayday, watch out, there is something we don't want to have. So your energy is all getting lost to immune system reactions.
Mhm.
So there is an inflammatory reaction. So there is no energy left to give you the energy to do the things you like. It's all being consumed in trying to defend your body. That's actually what's happening. And so mitochondria are very sensitive to that too. They only have two states. One is, okay, I produce energy. The other one is, no, no, I actually try to protect you from oxidative stress. So in that case, there is almost no energy left. It will first, first your body will make sure the basic functions are still completed, like breathing or digesting or seeing, and then there is no space anymore to produce energy. And that's when at some point gradually you feel your energy go down. You try to get things that may help you for a little moment, and then suddenly you collapse because your body says, hey, no, no, there is an overload. I can't deal with that anymore. I need to protect your body. Yeah. So
Mm.
it is a good, natural defense of your body, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I think that we don't know and understand enough about this in terms of the biology of us as human beings. But also, I think about it from, and I'd love your thoughts on this. what you just described, I also see that from like a bit from a total business perspective. If you think about it like a living and breathing, system, it's almost like a similar sort of thing. Like you can walk into a business and energetically see that the business is, not well, if you like, or sick, because exactly what you're explaining is actually what's happening, not just from an individual perspective, but can also be from a total business perspective. Do you look at that? I mean, I know that's probably a bit more far-fetched. Well, not far-fetched, but you're talking about a human body here. But do you think there's also almost like a business body in terms of if you think about energy and a system?
You mean like, well, I mean, again, I see like gut as a foundation. And I think as well in a business organization, you need to have a proper foundation. What are
Yeah.
the main
Yeah.
processes? And so, before you get all the fancy stuff, you need a proper foundation, like in health. Yeah. So if you run a company, I also think, I mean, something that's used to bother me in big corporates was a lot of waste, yeah, where you lost actually a lot of energy to activities that were non-value added. And some, there should be some minimal waste. Like in your body, there is some minimal waste. As long as it's limited, your body can deal with it, can get rid of it or can process it, right? I mean, or a limited amount of stress or manageable amount of stress, your body can totally deal with it if the foundation is there, yeah. And so, and in corporate world, I felt like sometimes there were more people focused on waste production and processing rather than doing the core of the business, yeah. And so that, yeah, it's a nice parallel to think of, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the foundation. So at what point does a client come to you? Are they generally, when it comes to preventative, do you quite often though have people that are coming to you where they're on the brink of burnout, or is it like, how does it work for you? You must have all types, or do they even, because I don't know about you, but when I was burning out, everyone else could see it around me, but I couldn't see it. And I look back now and people are like, yeah, you look so different. You are such a different person now. But I didn't, I just assumed this was just how it was. And so it'd be interesting to understand the types of leaders and when they come to you, whether they're aware or not, if they're on the brink or they're looking for preventative measures.
So I advertise on, doing prevention. Yeah, in practice, there are people coming to me who are already beyond prevention. But so I was searching for a long time, like how do you attract people in
Mm,
the prevention area?
yeah.
Because people like you, yeah, they won't realize, they don't know, like, well, what is it? So I tackled many things and the symptoms are always the same, yeah, but it's like what is triggering people in this world to really do something about it, or at least maybe make the first step and think like, maybe this is not so normal anymore. And so, digestive issues is one that seems to work, I mean, very well. So at least, and weight, I always refused to, for a long time, I refused to work on weight management and weight loss because I always felt if you get the proper health, the weight will follow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's never my hook. But in reality, people are, attracted by, oh, I want to look good and skin. Yeah. I want to look good and I want to look young. I want to be able to put on my trousers and my dress from last year. So that is a hook. But when you then start to talk, typically there are already digestive issues or there is brain fog or people walk around with, joint pain and muscle pain, they think it's normal because they enter their 40s or 45 or 50, it's totally normal. Or they have a little bit of belly fat, but it's normal. But these to me are all signs of inflammation. Yeah. But so I do get people who are close to burnout for sure, but who may not realize they are close to burnout. So I try to stick in that because I feel I can do a lot or I can help people faster if I get them before chronic disease. But even chronic disease, I mean, to me, it's fascinating, especially with the tools we have today, the diagnostic tools we have today. It's fascinating to see how I can support them in their journey and potentially bring them back to a place where they may not need certain medications anymore. So in terms of age, so I always say, okay, it's really, end of 30s, beginning of 40s, 50, 60 years old. But I get children nowadays too, and that is terrible actually. And
Mm.
this that stage, it doesn't have to do with corporate stress, but it has to do with a very fast-paced life.
Society,
Uh,
yeah.
and also for the children, and also an exposure to a lot of toxins in the world. And if you have even, I live here in Switzerland in a very privileged environment, nature, close to nature. But even here we see cases, and unfortunately, it is a reality that our soils are depleted, on the entire planet, and also that we get exposed to more toxins. And if you are a little bit unlucky in your genetic code, in terms of detoxification, then this can trigger certain energy loss patterns even in children, yeah, or
Mm,
with allergic reactions to dust or to pollen, or yeah. So it's fascinating, I think, today how the science has evolved as well.
mm,
The tools are not all new, yeah. Like if I look back 5 years ago, there are certain tools we had already, but the understanding and how you can then personalize nutrition, sometimes supplementation, to bring people back into a place where your body can again function optimally. That is fantastic. Also, like I think understanding of the microbiome nowadays
mm.
with molecular genetic testing, you can really make a difference and truly build back a microbiome. And I think like when you're in your 20s, your body can still modulate, and maybe you can do things through nutrition if you're strict, and through lifestyle. But once you're getting older, like end of 30, mid 30s, end of 30s and above, sometimes it becomes difficult to bring back that balance without really personalized support in terms of personalized microbiome support, personalized nutrients support, and understanding how you can bring back your balance.
Mm.
And after that, once you find back your balance, then you learned a lot, and then it's more a matter of knowing yourself, getting to know yourself, or learning more about yourself. How can I manage,
Yeah.
truly actively manage my health for the future, forever? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that actively managed because that's what it's all about, right? Like, in terms of, having that, need to, that's that whole preventative piece. What about though and I'm asking you probably quite tricky questions because it's always intriguing for me. What about if you, for example, I've always been into preventative, I've always been like, more holistic, integrated medicines, preventative. But yeah, something wasn't working for me. And I guess this comes back to mind, when you think about mind and body, and you said, the soul is quite depleted.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before about understanding what are the triggers. So I've always been super healthy. I've always been very, kind of fit and always, eaten well. And, I've got a great doctor and he's integrated, etc. But there was something that was obviously, and I know what the triggers were now, but in terms of that, as much as I was practicing and being preventative, I still burnt out. Like, do you see that trap at all as well? Like, is there something, what do you see there's then a bigger gap there that's going on? Like, do you work with clients where they're doing all the right things, or maybe, but then something is triggering it to then almost still cause the stress or the energy to deplete? Like, is there something there in that?
Yeah. There are many triggers or many factors that you need to be managing, and depending on the personality, which has a little bit to do with your genetics, but also with your microbiome population. So there are many triggers, and I talked about nutrition, nutrients, and stress, etc. There is also your past. Yeah, how did you come to this world? And also in your younger years, did you get already loads of antibiotics, and your body has learned to deal with it with a already imbalanced gut? But at some point, this comes through. Also, like, did you have, traumas in your childhood? Yeah, whether it was loss of a parent or of a sister or whatever, or any, child abuse. But it doesn't need to be that bad. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
smaller things that you experience as very traumatic because of your personality, where your neighbor would have gone through and put that in his mind in a certain place and close the
Compartmentalized it. Yeah. Yeah.
but so some people are different, yeah, more sensitive, and it has to do with genetics. It's very interesting as well. But yeah, totally, you can still do the right thing, but feed your body with stress. Yeah, even you may have the best diet in the world, but you're feeding your body with a stressful lifestyle. Lifestyle in terms of stress. There is a trauma that you never got to resolve. I still believe so. Today, when we, for example, in functional medicine, when they treat depression, it always starts with gut healing. The
Mm,
reason is, just for example, I mean, a lot of precursors of neurotransmitters or hormones are built in the gut. And I mean, the best example that people mostly understand is serotonin. Yeah, that's a happiness hormone. So 70 to 80% of it is built in the gut. Yeah, and so if you don't have a proper gut microbiome, well, guess what? You won't get as much serotonin as your neighbor, and this doesn't help. Yeah, I mean, after that, in functional medicine, when you have the foundation, then you see like how much medication do we still need to help that person? How much therapy do
mm.
we still need to help that person moving forward? What's really left? But that is like, again, I come back to that foundation. But yes, totally, there is trauma, but the more you can have a proper foundation, the more you can work on yourself to deal with that past trauma, to do some work. The more you are open to it, the more you may be stress resilient to reopen that box that you buried 20 years ago, for example. So yeah, but
Yeah,
totally.
it's really fascinating. I've got a few more questions. In terms of leaders and what you're seeing today, what do you think is the biggest opportunity for leaders when it comes to what you're talking about, living your best version of yourself? Like, what are you seeing as the biggest opportunity in terms of this whole preventative space for them to be the best versions of themselves as a leader, but also for their teams and for their businesses, and knowing what you've when you were a leader in corporate world as well. What do you think is the biggest opportunity?
Yeah, so I think there is a huge opportunity for leaders and their teams actually to do some preventative testing. And testing may start already with a questionnaire, like going through your symptoms and realizing with a health practitioner, like I mean, who is who has a holistic approach, realizing, okay, maybe this is not normal. That's a symptom I had for many years, but I didn't know this wasn't normal.
Mm,
Or I've been taking that medication for many years, but I didn't know there was another way to deal with it. Medication means more toxins. But so I think there's a huge area in terms of one, okay, symptom, checking with yourself already. What do I have as symptoms? Is this really normal?
mm,
Then also in terms of preventative testing, and I mean, there is a huge list of potential testing options, and you could be testing. I don't know, 2000 markers that will not help you. But like, just for me, the best first test is really testing your gut health with genetic stool test, basically, where basically you can really get a picture nowadays of your gut microbiome. We basically measure the DNA of the microbes of your bacteria, and then we know, like, we have a plot of your microbiome, and we know these are the big families, they are depleted, they are strong, they are weak, and then we get into details, like these are, for example, butyrate builders. You were talking about energy. So butyrate builders play a huge role in building energy. And I see it over and over again, like, many people walk around and they don't have enough butyrate builders in their gut, and then they come and complain about, oh, my energy level is not so good. It can never be good if that is your situation. So today you have that opportunity to have that, to get that picture and understand, like, okay, how do I support them through
mm.
nutrition? Do I need personalized? I work with a company in Netherlands, and they actually produce personalized probiotics based on your
Love
outcome,
that.
based on symptoms, based on your yeah, the assessment of the therapist, my assessment, for example. But so basically, that would be a first step. We were talking about that foundation. To me, before taking a lot of supplements, if you don't know whether your gut will be able to absorb those, basically you may be flushing through a lot through the toilets. Yeah, that's also a shame. You may be flushing through a lot of those expensive supplements through the toilet. So you need to understand what you do. I get a lot of questions about NAD and and metformin, and but that's not the place to start. Yeah, if you want to have proper functioning mitochondria, start with your gut. And yes, then second steps are indeed like I talked about depleted soils and nutrient deficiency. So
Mm,
if the balance is not, it's like a financial balance. Yeah, if you don't have enough nutrients for whatever you want to spend on energy, it's not going to work. So it's important to check. I would say on an annual basis, but definitely every second year. Where are my nutrients? Nutrients meaning minerals and vitamins. Do I have any depletion? Because if I do, well, maybe I can supplement for 2, 3 months and then I'm back in a proper level and I can reduce inflammation because my body has
mm.
nutrients again to function. And I get more and more into genetic testing. So I'm a big fan of epigenetic regulation. I have a cancer gene family. So I was
How do
screened
I?
very.
Mm.
So I always thought like, oh man, this is so dangerous. I still think, but I got to learn to live with, okay, my genetic code is there, but it's the epigenetic regulation or, managing the inflammation in the end and managing, it's a little bit simplistic, but managing like muting certain genes
Yeah.
and making sure certain genes are expressed that will keep me away or that gives me the biggest chance to stay away from chronic disease like cancer. And so the more and more I'm getting into genetic testing and not so much about I'm going to test whether you're carrying that cancer gene or whatever. It's more about genetic testing in the field of detoxification and inflammatory markers. Do I actually have unfavorable genes, and then can I do a little bit more in terms of supporting
The foundation.
nutrition and nutrients? And I think the last one, I think people hear a lot about intermittent fasting, detox, and what is it really? But so I think that is a wonderful way of when you have gone through stressful periods to help resetting your body, to do like a 10-day detox. I do, I run online programs on that. And in the end, whatever program you do, you have to make sure that you're well covered in nutrients so that your body has nutrients to detoxify. And in the end, it all comes down to the same. It's all about supporting your natural process of your body, autophagy, to clean up dead cells or disturbed cells and give a boost in terms of rejuvenation. And it all comes down to, it goes back to what I did so many years ago when I was completely down and went to that clinic in Austria.
Yeah.
It all comes down to giving your body a chance to heal whatever can be healed, yeah, by coming down on digestion and freeing up energy for healing, whether it's joint pain, whether it's brain fatigue and brain fog, whether it's tummy pain, whether it's whatever you are, or like loss of.
Experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
interesting. There's so much to like we could keep talking about. And I did say to you before we jumped on, I feel like we'll talk. But I'm gonna ask you one more question or a thought, and then I want to go into the your unique insight you shared when booking in for the pod. But if you, I keep coming back to businesses, right? You've been in corporate, I've been in corporate. It was unsustainable the way we were operating. It still is, in terms of, yes, there are a lot of businesses that are, cognizant of, avoiding burnout. But then there's a lot of businesses that are doing tokenistic well-being things to, oh no, we've got that in place, but actually it's not doing anything. I've always had this, more, I probably more recently over the last couple of years, I've really thought about, how can you normalize that? You talked about this testing, right? This preventative testing to see where people were at. So it feels like to me, if we were to redefine or reshape the future of business and the future of leaders, at the moment we have these organizations where there's a HR department or there's a people and culture or there's a well-being. But they're not really actually getting into that. They're not solving the surface level. It's not getting into what's actually going on here from a whole being perspective of a leader and a whole being of a team. And I don't know if this is something that you're exploring over in Switzerland in terms of how do you bring someone like yourself into an organization and it's not in being intrusive into someone's personal health and personal details, but it's ensuring that the leadership and the team are what I like to call optimally thriving. And it's like it is like a like a football team or a soccer team where they're constantly being ensuring that everyone is at their performing at their best and they're optimally thriving, or what I like to say is shining their brightest. I just feel like that is the missing piece in a lot of businesses. And yeah, is that something that is you're exploring more and more, over in Switzerland? Is it something that, is happening where it's quite normal to have someone like yourself come in and do those preventative questionnaires that are getting into the deep foundations of, well, actually what's going on with the person or the team as a collective
Yeah.
to then be able to, yeah.
Yeah, there is probably coming more and more, but to your point, indeed, like in big corporates, they have then these types of wellness programs and online programs, but I don't think they truly live or they're truly there. I had explored like a corporate program which started with some testing, and for some reason, well, my contact actually left that company, and I mean, I had other projects popping up, and I didn't pursue it, but in the end, you can't put the responsibility on the company. And I think it starts with the leader of a team.
Yeah.
If he doesn't show the interest and if he is like, having an absolutely horrible lifestyle and expecting that his team members have a similar lifestyle as him and don't take a break to go and breathe, or don't take a break to go for a jog, or if he doesn't care about proper nutrition when they have like team building events. So I think, like parenting, it starts with role modeling, and
Mm.
I think people should also stay away from, at the moment, from that idea of my company should take care of me. It's like a little bit like my doctor should be take care of me,
Yeah,
and he
no,
should.
you make a good point. Mm.
I think everybody should. So yeah, maybe that's the best insight. But everybody should really, take action for his. I mean, be the CEO of his own or her health. Yeah, and
Love
so
that.
when you start, then you will, start to impact people around you as well. And it's in little things. And I catch myself all the time. And again, I think it's a personality thing as well. A doctor once called me self-destructive, but so I get into those high adrenaline and high noradrenaline and modes. Yeah, this is my personality and genetics. Now I understand it. Um, but so I catch myself as well. I have to force myself to say, "Oh, come on, do that exercise." It's only half an hour, but I will be far more productive later on. And so you have to trust, I think, at some point in time, like, okay, expectations are that I'm going to sit at my desk from whatever 8:30 to 7 p.m. or but you have to trust yourself that if you take that half an hour and you are more productive and you
Yeah.
have more positive vibes, you will be perceived as a more productive team member, but also a more performing team member. And that half an hour that you took for yourself will not be a penalization. On the contrary, you will shine, you will have those endorphins, that's but
The
you will
idea, you
be.
get the fresh perspectives as well. You get clarity, right? You're subtracting from the mind. You're not adding more and more load to the cognitive load, if that makes sense. So no, it's a really good point.
Programs, maybe just to finish up. So I think it's really difficult nowadays in big corporates, unless you have the right context, because they have put in place their own wellness programs, and kind of difficult to position yourself. You don't necessarily agree with, or you find it very, generalistic, and it's not really going to help people. I think in smaller companies, yeah, or medium-sized companies, you may have a bigger opportunity, and I see it like also in coaching, mental coaching of some of
Mm,
my colleagues. They seem to have more success in small to mid-sized companies.
yeah,
It's a good start, yeah, because
I think
then
you're
you
right.
start.
Yeah,
Mm,
test and learn. I love that. I love that. One last, I just wanted to kind of to tap into your unique insight that you shared in terms of or experience in life leadership of business. And you said, don't wait until you hit a wall to start actively managing your health. And a lot of
yeah.
this we've talked about, but today our bodies and minds are under constant pressure from poor nutrition, chronic stress, environmental toxins, and a fast-paced lifestyle. The good news is we now have the tools to personalize health like never before through things like gut health optimization. You've talked about the mitochondrial support and even epigenetic regulation. Yet many people ignore the symptoms or mask them with quick fixes. If you want to truly live up to your potential in life, business, or leadership, you need to unlock and maintain your health potential first. So what would be the one bit of based on that, and I love all that you talk about in there, what would be the one bit of advice you'd give everybody? Because you talked about the fact you're now getting children coming at you as well as working with leaders. What would be the one bit of advice you'd give to everybody as a starting point to I guess to look after to live the best version of themselves?
So maybe one of my, or I think my biggest focus on a daily basis is to reduce your level of toxic exposure. Everybody can do that at their home. You can all look at your cosmetics, at your food. You can buy higher quality food. You can buy, if you want meat from the valley that was grass fed. That's one thing. And then secondly, people always, it's only a minority of people who dare to do like a type of detox cure, yeah, like 10 days really cutting out sugar, cutting out alcohol, cutting out animal products, and really going plant-based for a week, because that will reduce your toxic load. You give your digestion a break, and people find that extremely difficult, or also afraid to be in starvation, yeah, or to have hunger. They don't know that feeling anymore. That overload is also generating a lot of through metabolism, a lot of toxins. And so I like people to think back at our ancestors and think like, they didn't find food all the time, or at the, at in the morning, lunch, dinner. So going lower on calories, and going lower on and focusing on the good calories only for a 10-day period, that won't kill you. On the contrary, you will, after a few days, most people report like clearer minds, clearer thoughts,
Mm.
and that is just your body being able to reducing toxic load and repairing a little bit in your body. And after that, I think it's also just doing that 10 days, it's helping you changing your behaviors afterwards. Because any sugary thing afterwards will taste like, wow, this is too much sugar. Or any vegetables or fruit, you will have better taste buds, and you will be more tempted to eat more of that. So I think, everybody can do that at home. You don't need anybody actually. You can look at how can I reduce my toxic exposure in what I do? What do I know? It's better than nothing. And how can I also, in my nutrition, reduce my toxic intake for 10 days?
Yeah, that's amazing. I've got a funny, quick little story. I've quite a few years ago, before I hit my burnout, I went on a health retreat for a week. I kept going to these quick fixes, if you like, and I went to this one for 7 days, and it was Yeah, no phones, no coffee, no meat, no alcohol, no sugar. And you'll laugh at this. I remember this one particular day. We went paddleboarding and it got to like, I don't know, it would have been about 2 o'clock. And I was so angry. And one of the coaches that was at this health retreat, she's like, "What's wrong?" And I just started swearing and just saying, "I just want some, effing sugar." I was just like this, like psycho, like just going. And she's like, "Well, B, you need to think about why you want sugar at this point in time, and like talk, like become aware of it." And I, at the time, was like, "I don't care." Like I was just so frustrated because it was my body, because that's what I used to do. Like it was my pick me up. And then when I realized that I was actually having sugar because I was tired at that point in time every single day, and I worked myself through it. But at the time when this coach was saying this all to me, I was just like, no, don't, like you've got me at the wrong time. And I do have to giggle now because it makes sense the way we react and how our body behaves, when we're stressed or when we're tired. So, oh my gosh, there's so much that you've shared, Muriel. And like I said, we've been talking for close to an hour, and I feel like I could keep talking and talking and talking with you. How do we find out more about you and your company? Yeah, where's the best place to go to find more about what you're doing?
So you can go to my website, so www.liveyourbestversion.com. And so I'm also on social media. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me, book a consultation, free consultation on my website. And yes, that's the best way to find me.
Amazing. And I'll put that in the notes. Well, Muriel, thank you so much. I've learned a lot about myself again tonight, or reminded myself a lot about myself and, that need to kind of make sure I've got the foundations in order. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, it's been amazing. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and it's very interesting to see how you have parallels to what I experienced so many years ago.
Yeah, so yeah, well, we're here to make the change, aren't we? And we're here to show everybody there is a different way. And so, yeah, let's continue to spread that word. Thank you,
Thank you.
Muriel.